Welcome to the Top M&A Entrepreneurs. Today, my guest is Robert Nance. Robert Nance has acquired 25 businesses over the last 20, 25 years, and he started a private equity fund to fund independent sponsors to buy a business. He will put the down payment down, and he will find financing to pay off the rest. You get to keep 60%, he keeps 40%, and we're going to see how he does that. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Before we start in, if you like this content or these interviews, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell button so you're notified of fresh content. All right, Robert, tell us the story about, let's all rewind and go back to your first acquisition and how this started.
Good. Well, I was in Dallas. I had a real estate development firm. I had about 124 properties, and started with single, duplex, quads, triplexes, quads. Then went to commercial, went to things, the natural progression. The point had quite a few people working for me. Had quite a few, about 3 companies: the acquisition firm, the leasing firm, and the real estate firm. So I was looking for a bigger office. And I didn't want to go lease. I'm in real estate. I don't want to go lease something. So I found a building downtown, about 20,000 square foot, but it just so happened to have a Mexican food distribution company inside it. I was paying $1.2 million for the building, which was worth it to me. And so the business was basically free. And my partner said, "What are we going to do with a Mexican meat distributor?" I said, "I have no idea. I'm in real estate. I don't know what to do." So we got in. We had some pretty smart guys working for me. We figured out what to do, kind of get in, try to turn it around. And bottom line is, I realized that business acquisitions was the key. And I had, at that point, about 15 million in equity in real estate. But the cash wasn't there. I heard a quote yesterday, or the day before yesterday, that 7% of billionaires in the world are in real estate. 93% are buying and selling businesses. I didn't know that, just heard it. So I don't know if it's accurate, but I heard it from fairly reputable individuals.
It's on the internet. Must be true.
Yeah, it must be. But anyway, so obviously I didn't know any statistics or anything at that point. I just saw that this made us a lot of cash. This made us, we could increase value by doing certain modules. And over time, I've created different modules to add value. And that's what I've been doing since July of 1999.
So it was a Mexican food meat company?
Yeah, B2B. Yeah, B2B, wholesale. It was B2B. And that's what started me off.
Carnitas and everything else, right?
Yeah, everything that we focused on, the restaurants down, Dallas has a lot of Hispanic restaurants. And so that's what it was supporting or supplying.
And it was throwing off, it was profitable, just throwing off cash flow?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. But typically, these owners that we target are retiring. And when you get into that mindset of retirement, the growth mindset is out. Any change inside the business is out. You're just hanging on to sell what you've built over the years. And that's typically what I've seen over the past 24 years. The same mindset, same individual, doesn't matter what their name is. It's the same mindset.
Well, did you have any opinion about the food business or business and the cash flow separately? Because sometimes people go, I love buying businesses with cash flow, but I'm not going to get into the restaurant or the food business.
No, I didn't have any opinion on anything. I was a real estate developer.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about anything. I just knew I'm paying $1.2 million for a building, to me, that was worth at least $200,000 to $300,000 more. So the business didn't really matter what we did. It was free. We got in, figured it out. In a couple of months, I realized that this is the business I should be in. And it's weird because now over the years I bought the building and the business, and I separated them into 2 purchases, 2 entities. But now I don't deal with real estate inside the business, because I learned that a business is a business. Real estate is real estate. Those are 2 separate type operations. And I still buy real estate. But it's not with a business. The real estate I buy, maybe hotels, that real estate has to be attached to the business. I learned over the years that real estate and a business, that's the old school thinking. So we never buy real estate anymore with the business. I just focus strictly. I'm strictly a financial investor now. We strictly buy cash flow.
Just the
So
cash flow.
Yeah, just cash flow. Yeah, in the beginning, I didn't know anything. Over 24 years, I've learned quite a bit. But it's I'm a strictly cash flow investor from our little private equity fund. It's just straight cash flow, and that's why we target certain industries. If I'm looking at a business as an investor, and I can buy it a multiple of 2, or I'm looking at another industry and the multiple's 5. Well, what would I'm getting my money back in a year. It means it's a 50% return.
2 years, yeah.
As opposed,
Yeah.
So I'm getting as opposed to 4 to 5 years. So it's just, and those multiples are out there in the industries we target.
Yeah.
Every day, all day long.
Do you, when you say that, when you looked at investors, was that because you had some pragmatic results? Hey, I'm going to go find some investors, and they're going to ask, when do I get my money back? 2 years versus 5 years. It goes,
no.
Look, yeah.
I put the firm together, the little private equity firm together, just like I bought my first business, just with friends. There's 6 or 7 of us. It's private. There's nothing. We only do certain. We get together. We figure out what we're going to invest in. Like COVID. That's the reason I went down to Colombia and started buying hotels. This U.S. business, and we were actually buying in the U.S. looking to buy. When COVID hit, everything turned upside down. And the favorite pitch of a broker is it's gonna come back. Just think during COVID, that mindset of we don't know what's happening here.
Yeah,
we don't know. And this was a long time. This was 2 years. So we decided to go start investing in hotels.
Yeah,
and other things.
Curious, what happened to that Mexican meat business? You still have it, or you sold it, or what?
No. I don't have anything. I don't have anything from those days. The only thing I'm doing now is taking on the partnerships. That's the only thing we're doing now. This is 24 years ago. Yeah, we got
24 years ago. So tell me a little bit more about like the second, third, and fourth, and what did you learn about these purchasing and these cash flowing businesses?
Well, every deal, I learned something new, mainly in how to structure the contract, how to negotiate the contract, and I can't recall exactly the second one, the third one, but I can go through what the process of learning was like. We never use SBA. We always do owner financing. I'll give you the reason behind that is because you can't do, in these privately held companies, you can't do the due diligence necessary. And this is the reason we don't do SBA as well. You can't do, not the way we buy, because we buy on a wholesale level. We're looking at 5 or 10 companies at a time. You can't spend $15,000, $20,000 on a due diligence process that SBA is going to require. They require, you take a personal guarantee when you do an SBA loan. And the way we buy, the seller guarantees it by carrying the note. I could say 100% of the time that I bought a company, there were liabilities that were not disclosed.
Every time you purchase, yeah,
every time. From straight fraud,
it wasn't even on the balance sheet.
No, from straight fraud to just a mistake. But still, something. And I know going into these deals, there are going to be liabilities that are not disclosed because of the accounting systems and the processes and procedures that these old school owners operate under. So I know that. That's just an assumption I go in when I write the contract. That's why I've got a book that's on the site. You can get the ebook. I've created a process of what's called floors and ceilings. Inside the contract, first inside the LOI, we put floors on assets, which means and liabilities on a ceiling on the liabilities. Which simply means when I contract, I look at the most recent balance sheet. I put those numbers exactly in the contract. That's what people say. How do we know it's right? How do we know it's not? Well, because you don't have to, with my way of buying, you don't have to get into that. I get applications, because I'm looking for partners. I get applications 2, 3, 4 a day. And I ask them, very simple. It's just a phone number, name, and what's your biggest problem? And a lot of the time is they don't have the knowledge to move forward and feel secured. And with our contract, and I did this in the first one because I was in real estate. I knew inherently people do what's best for themselves.
That came from seller financing came from real estate, didn't it?
Yeah, inherently people yes. And the difference between the two, the real estate, is that you can have a second, third, fourth. I've had a third. I had never had a fourth. But on real estate, because the value is actually there. Yeah, tenants can destroy, they can mess up the doors, they can do this, but the value in real estate's there. You can't have a second. No intelligent investor would ever take a second on a business, because the first, if there's a problem, the first is going to wipe out all the value. And once the business stops operating, which that means when they wipe that first out, the business has stopped operating. So there's a big difference. I don't have any problem with banks or SBAs. Well, SBA is a business, but banks, I had a ton of loans on real estate. Everything was a loan. But business is a moving target. When I contract that business, like, let's say January 1st, and close February 15th, the owner has complete control of that business. That's why I've come up with the concept of floors and ceilings. And the floors and ceilings are directly related to the down payment. Meaning, if I say, okay, I'm giving you $500,000 down, and you've got to have $1 million in cash, or that's a lot, but it's easier for me to, let's say $100,000 in cash, $200,000 in current accounts receivable. Those are floors. You can't go below those numbers, and if you do, which they will, it's going to be subtracted from the down payment at closing, because I'm going to bring the $500,000, whether it goes to the seller or to the company. It doesn't matter to me. You understand? So I'm bringing $500,000, but what happens typically is the seller reduces the assets and increases the liabilities. And the same is on the other side. If it's higher than the ceiling that I've contracted for, it goes back into the company, because in effect, in reality, the seller has pulled out that money and already put it into his pocket. And that's what happens 100% of the time. 100%. The liabilities are higher and the assets are lower. It doesn't matter to me. If it's a $250,000 difference, I give the seller $250,000 and I give the company $250,000, because the seller over those 45 days has taken out that $250,000 and has already put it in his pocket. So in effect, the seller gets his $500,000 and the company gets made whole again. So that's how our contracts are structured.
Yeah. And is this you sign this LOI, and is this over a 90, 100-day process that you're doing this floors and ceiling check before you take it over? No. The LOI is signed. We start our preliminary due diligence, and we have the ability to close with a 5-day, let's say a 5 to 10 day notice to the seller within that time frame. Now, we never go the review time frame, the view period. And typically we're there on the ground looking, making sure everything's going well. And within that review period, we'll send them the letter that we're ready to close. So we'll close let's say we'll close on a Friday. We'll close business on a Monday. In effect, close business. So all the receipts that come in from Monday to Friday. And this is all done with a closing attorney, typically a title company. We'll give the contract to the attorney at the title company, and he'll do all the prorations. We'll start giving him the money, all the checks that come in. There's nothing really paid at that point. Typically, the payables should be able to be put on hold as well. If they're not, we make certain adjustments. Sometimes food, sometimes cycles that are a week to 2 weeks as opposed to 30 days. They have to make payables. They have to make obviously payroll, but there have to be some payables there as well. And so we adjust that. So in effect, we close the business on Monday. We stop the business, and in effect, it's not a transfer yet until Friday, but the business as of Monday is owned by us. But it's actually not owned by us till Friday, because you've got to stop somewhere. You've got to stop a business at some point. You can't just, there's no way you can do the prorations if the business in effect is not closed. So now, if for some reason, this has never happened, if some reason we don't close it on Friday, it's still the owner's. And so he just brings the receivables to the closing table on Friday, brings the payables, and
we work together during that time frame, but in effect, the business has to close. You can't do it all in one day.
Yeah, I would call that a freaking amazingly fast close, a quick close.
No. We're not closing. Let's say we sign the contract on January 1st. We're going to do some due diligence outside for 10 to 15 days, maybe 20, then go to the facilities for a week, or maybe if it's larger, maybe 2. So we can close within a month. But as soon as that time frame where the business closes is 20, 25 days after we've signed the contract.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So,
let me go back to, you talked about there's always some hidden liabilities in there.
Yep.
What did you put into place to mitigate those unforeseen liabilities?
It's the contract.
Is it reps and warranty insurance, or what is it?
No, it's reps and warranties and owner financing. If we have, let's just say, now let me explain the difference between owner financing, owner carry, and SBA. SBA is going to come in and say, great, okay, that's good. You can, I'm sure there's some kind of reps and warranties. I don't know. I don't do SBA, but you got to make that payment to SBA every month. Every month. They don't care if there's extra liabilities. So you got to make that payment. Plus you got to make the payment to these liabilities, and just hope it's not an extraordinary number. And I've had extraordinary numbers before. However, the way we buy companies is that the seller has signed already. If there's liabilities, and all the liabilities are attached to the contract, if there's liabilities that come in that aren't disclosed, we pay those liabilities immediately and subtract it from your note. Now, we may go figure out later if they're real liability, if they're not, and we'll talk about it before we pay them. When I say immediately, we're going to talk to this guy. But if we decide this is our business, if we don't pay something, we're cut off. You understand? So, and I've had this happen quite a bit. Again, some were intentional, some were unintentional. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why undisclosed liabilities come in. We've got to pay them. We've got the liabilities of our new company. So we pay them and subtract it from the note.
Yeah. I used to work in with a buddy who would install point of sale systems at restaurants, and if they didn't pay their bills, we'd set off the credit card.
Yeah.
And you stop business, and they paid immediately. What? Yep. I can't process credit cards? Like, you can see the cash move over to the account real fast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this also, there's so many reasons. There's just so many reasons why we do what we do. And I'll get back to your original question. I can't tell you if I learned this on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 10th, 14th deal, but it's our contract, in my experience, is over 24 years. It's very difficult at this point to get over on me. It's just very difficult.
Well, because the bottom line is you're not surprised, right? You're not surprised to see shit.
I expect to see it. Yeah. And when I do see it, I just pay it. I pay it and subtract it from, we pay it because we've got to pay it, or the business is going to be affected. And we subtract it from the owner's note. That's why we require owner financing, and a heavy 50+%.
50+%. Now, so what's the other 50%? It's cash down, or
yeah, it's our cash down. And it's not because we don't have the money. It's because I just know something's going to come up. Now, in 6 months, I don't have a problem if we can't get past, if the owner, and typically the owner likes this, owner finance, by the way, once he understands the ramifications, understands the tax implications. But sometimes we can't get past that. I have no problem coming in and paying cashing him out 6, 8, 10, 12 months once we understand where the skeletons are. The reason we do that is that we know skeletons are in the business. The skeletons are in the building. We just don't know where. And I'm not going to spend $20,000 before I close a deal to see, and we do due diligence. Don't get me wrong. Our due diligence is fairly thorough, but the real key is the contract, is the floors and ceilings concept, and the guarantees and warranties, reps and warranties by the seller.
Yeah. When you talk about tax consequences, this is something I always talk about also. It's like, if they take seller financing, it's more tax beneficial to the seller to take this seller financing than it is to take just a lump sum right up front, because it's capital gains tax. Yeah.
Well, plus we only do We don't do asset purchases. We only do stock purchases, which is better for the seller as well. It takes them a little while. They have to go to the CPA and understand everything, because most companies are listed as asset sales at this point. When I started doing this, the majority were stock sales. So we started out doing stock sales and we don't look back. I'm not interested in buying assets. If I'm buying assets, I'm buying them at 10 cents on the dollar. I'm interested in operational companies that are operating. And once we, like that Friday when we actually do the closing, that next Monday, it's the same company. It's just changed ownership. The stock has changed. The owners of the stock has changed. But when you strip out the assets of a company, you've got to, and I've had something like this happen. I can tell you this was the first deal. When you strip out assets of the company, you have to reapply. And that's not theoretical. That's actual. When people get word that the owner for the last 20 years has sold the company, it's over, regardless whether it's stock or asset. However, I put a gag order in from the owner. It happened on the first deal. He made a great announcement the day after closing that he sold the business. It was a disaster. Even though it was a stock sale, it was still a disaster. So in theory, they are not supposed to be able to do that because the credit is with the company. But in actuality, they stop it. They make you reapply. So we try to, and we do reapply. We do own some businesses, but not week one. There's a lot more things that I need to do week one than start reapplying for credit. Reapplying for credit is way down the road.
I think the reason they moved to asset sales is because what you're talking about, which was there was always some type of hidden liabilities in there, just comes up later that affects the performance of the business. So they just no, I'm just going to buy the assets.
Could be. It could be. Well, I'm not though. My contract, I've weighed the pros and cons, and I get it. There's possibly on the cons side is possibly hidden liabilities. We can eliminate or alleviate the big ones, the taxes, that's what the CPAs do. But I'll give you one example. One of the deals I did, they were operating a quarter of the company that was on the books. The income was on the books, but the way they ran it was out of a drawer in one of the back rooms. Nothing illegal. That's just the way they ran it. It just wasn't in the system. But the income they reported to the system. The liabilities they didn't. He literally took it out old school and just
God, that's so important. This is what I tell everybody. Goes look, Warren Buffett asked for 3 to 5 years income statements and 2 balance sheets 12 months apart, right? Because I think the balance sheet tells more of a story than the income statement.
I don't look at the income statement. I just look at balance sheets.
That's right. Yeah.
My CPAs look at the income. That is irrelevant for me when we're buying these companies. I just want to look at the balance sheet. I pull those numbers, put it into LOI, and we send it out. But you're right. I didn't know that. I don't. Again, I'm kind of I only know how to buy businesses at this level. That's all I do. I don't really follow Buffett. That's a world that I don't understand. I don't understand public.
Yeah, it's just the point was the balance. To me, the balance sheet tells more story. I go right to the 100%. Yeah,
100%.
Because anything on the income statement, that little line on the net income or EBIT or whatever it is, it's just the theory. I don't know if you have that much cash in there or not, right?
Yeah.
You can pad that, make it look great, but I go to the balance sheet and you only have 2,000 in the account or accounts receivable like 5 million. There's nothing there.
Exactly. And if they pad the balance sheet, I don't really care because my contract says that if we go to closing and you don't have the 200,000, actually, that's another story. If you don't have, I'll tell you what we actually do. But if you don't have the 200,000, well, that comes off the down payment. But here in reality, I told you I've got so many stories based on the question you asked originally. How did you learn this? It was one of the businesses I bought. The guy, the day of closing, he sent out a bunch of checks, reported it to the liability section, and didn't subtract the cash portion of the checks
out of the payables. Yeah,
the payables he subtracted to make the payables look less.
Yeah,
the cash he didn't subtract out to make the cash look more. And so I remember getting a call from my CEO at the time. She said, "Rob, we got checks. We got checks clearing this bank." I said, "What are you talking about? We haven't sent out checks because, at that time I was requiring them to have no liabilities for 1 week. I've since changed that but again, we want to get our head around this business. We don't want to, we want to get this is our first day in. We don't want to have a bunch of checks hitting. We don't know what they are." Well, they weren't anywhere to be found. I said, "Well, have you sent checks out?" No, I haven't. I called this. I said, what are you doing? What happened?" "Well, we play the float." I said, "What the hell are you talking about? You play the float?" "Well, I sent out checks this morning at closing." I said, "But you didn't subtract the
Cash and account.
cash account from the account." He said, "No, that's what we do. We play the float." I said, "Well,
What float? What are you talking about? Play the float."
Now this was one of the most egregious issues I had. So I said, "Okay, I got you." And so we cleared it up. Again, the contract was the contract. I subtracted it from his note. But I stopped taking the bank accounts. That's the only thing I create new is the new bank accounts. I don't care what you've got in the bank account. It's 200,000. You're keeping it all. I don't care if you've got 2 million or $2. If that recent balance sheet that I look at says, let's just say 200, keep it at 200. I give the seller at closing that account, and that money goes toward the down payment. So I learned that the hard way. It was a lot of money up front. I didn't have, this was one of my second, third, fourth deals. So I didn't have a lot of available cash at that time. And it was a lot of money, but we paid it, subtracted, but we had to subtract it over like 2 or 3 months because we didn't know the seller that much. We didn't know the seller. It took me, I said cash up front, but I had to give him, pay him out or not pay him for 2 or 3 months. So
was he doing this nefariously to?
Of course.
Yeah.
You can't be that stupid. Of course.
I play the float. Like that's what American Express does. They play.
Yeah.
So it's like,
he's got a $500,000 business. He's playing the float. Now the other guy who was running a quarter of his business from the drawer wasn't being nefarious. He wasn't, I don't think, trying to get over on us. But the bottom line, the result was the same in both instances.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to the suppliers what happened. It doesn't matter.
So you put this freeze on because the cash flow of business is fluid. It's moving all the time. You just need to see it. Yeah, it's a snapshot. You got to hey, slow down so I can take a look at what's going on there.
Yeah, it stopped. Yeah, it stopped for about a week. I can do it in 2 to 3 days if necessary. But with these new partners, I'm going back to the original. I used to do it for a week. Now we can get it done in 2 days, 3 days. So I could stop on a Wednesday and close on a Friday.
Yeah. That's because you commit specialty on a specific type of business. But I want to ask you about that. Rewind, you got 25 businesses, and you and I talked about this a little bit before. You've landed on B2B wholesale companies. Why did you migrate to that way? Because
that's all I know. I just don't know much. Yeah. I just don't know much. I know one thing in life, and I have a good life. I know how to buy companies. I've got certain modules that I've created in the B2B, and I'll tell you, we're in another industry now. This new partner that came in, I'll tell you about that later. But I've created modules to create value in wholesale B2B companies. I like those. I'm not opposed to others. And this new, actually a lady, she came in and said, I want to focus in this industry. I said, fine. So in the first, I've got a fairly, the first month inside the partnership program is fairly straightforward. So I gave her 2. I said, okay, look for manufacturing companies doing this, not manufacturing, but wholesale distribution. And then she wanted to be in the medical wholesale distribution field. I said, I love it. But she brought me companies that were, she looked at companies that were B2C, insurance based though. And so and those look to be like one of our new markets as well. Yeah.
So tell me about the characteristics of a B2B wholesale company. And if I ask you about the margins, to me, it sounds like a little bit kind of a tighter margins. What are you looking for in a B2B wholesale company? What kind of margins?
I look for a realistic seller, first of all. A realistic seller is what I look for. I know B2B like the back of my hand. So the margins are are less relevant because I know where I can take them to. Now they're relevant, don't get me wrong, but I know where I can take them to. I look at,
Well,
I
there's
look for real.
I suspect that you got a floor ceiling, right? Like if it's below the floor, it's too scary.
Well, the
Could
first
you
thing I
fix
do,
it? Yeah.
yeah, yes, I could, but I couldn't if the seller's not realistic. The first, do we have a realistic seller here? So one of the first things I teach my partners is that we have to have a realistic seller, or you're wasting your time. And a realistic seller, I'll look for. Okay, how long has he had it on the market? How many offers has he had? What are his ideas? And the ideas are less important because it doesn't matter what you think. When you go to buy a car, a great salesman's going to put you in whatever he wants, because he's going to explain what the benefits are.
He's good at that.
Yeah. And I'm really good at explaining the benefits to a seller. But when he's when he's just listed his company, he's not going to take the majority owner financing. Now, once he's had 2 or 3 offers and they fell through, and they've had the company listed for 4 or 6 months, that's what we look for. That's the main thing we look for. Then we go diving down. Okay, what are the sales? Everything inside of B2B is typically going to be all the margins, all the cost of goods, depending on, and then the expenses. I look at this expenses. I do look at the cost of goods as well, and certain companies are better than others. I love food. I don't like that it's a week to 14-day turnaround. I don't like that. I like typical 30-day cycles. But in certain industries, fresher food, fresher seafood, which I like a lot, the turnaround, the cycles are 7 to 14 days. But I like 30. So that goes back to that issue when we were talking about having to close the company for that week time frame. In a fresh seafood or a fresh food type distribution company, you can't not pay the bills because they're due in 7 days. And you've sold stuff last week, so they're due Tuesday. And so it's a little bit different. But in a 30-day cycle, you can typically push them back and close down all the payables during that week. Especially for
what about
3 days.
Manufacturing companies, like just make a physical manufacturing?
It goes back to the question you asked earlier, or the question I answered earlier about multiples. Typically, I never include FF&E into the price. FF&E is what it takes for the company to run. Sofas, whatever you've got. FF&E increases astronomically in manufacturing companies, and they want you to pay for FF&E. And I don't. Again, I'm a strict investor, and I go back to the question: why would I pay 5 times a 5-time multiple just because they've got equipment that is required to produce that return, to produce that net income, that SDE? Manufacturing companies typically want you to pay for the equipment. I'll never pay for equipment. The equipment is what it takes to create the net income. I'm not paying for something. I'm paying for net income, SDE, X times SDE plus minus assets and liabilities.
Yeah. For instance, I know that in metal or fabrication, you're paying for these large CNC machines, which are $300,000 to $500,000.
You're paying double. You're paying I'm already paying a certain multiple for the cash flow, and now I'm paying for the equipment that is required to create that cash flow, which is completely ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
Just the way I think. Again, it goes back to the way I think. I'm not going to pay for equipment that it takes to create the cash flow and pay a retail value for the cash flow. And that's how I choose my industries.
Interesting. What about how long they've been in business? 5, 10 years? Any?
Yeah, I like them older.
Yeah,
I like them 10 years. I like them 10 plus. Certain employees. So this goes back to you. By the way, that was a great question. And I couldn't answer it all at one time, but I knew I'd get to it eventually because every question you're going to ask thereafter is relevant to that question. The reason we look for 10 plus year old companies is because normally with these baby boomers who are retiring, there were key employees that began the company, typically that began the company with these old sellers. And these are the people we look for to promote. And normally we only buy companies with 2+ key employees who can step up. Now the owner doesn't think they can. for various reasons, because he's the only one that can do it, because he doesn't want to rock the boat, because whatever. And typically these employees hate these owners. They're friends, they're friendly, but they hate them because the owners are holding them down. The owners are not giving them the chance to come up and I can do this better. And typically they can, because the owner's just wanting to retire. And I understand that. Now they don't, but I understand that. And so that's what we look for, key employees. And that's the reason we look 10 plus years old. We want these people to have 5+ years experience, just like my partners. And my partners, the partners that I'm looking for, if they don't have 5+ years experience in management or 2+ years in a solopreneurship, 1 or 2 employees, I don't even want to talk to them. They've got to bring experience to the table. I'm bringing a lot to the table.
What does that resume look like? I mean, they've been a general manager of a Fortune 1000 company.
I'm too good.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the exact target market. I've got it up here. I just added another piece to it. I can't believe I forgot or didn't. So generally male, not always. I'm my first female, and she's doing astronomical. But I mean, just based on my partners since January, and there's 14 of them. It's generally male, 33 to 55 years old, live in the U.S., married, preferably with children, 5+ years management, or own their own business with 1 or 2 employees. So that's what I call solopreneur. Making at least $75,000 a year, owns a home, high school education or above, and behavioral is interested. Has shown interest in some type of business acquisition group at Facebook or LinkedIn, and another one, a separate piece. All those included, but a separate one has a real estate portfolio of $1 million or greater. Now that's not a criteria for everybody, but that's a new criteria that I'm targeting, because remember, and I can't believe I didn't think of this before. I had 15 in equity. I had about 35 to 50 million in real estate. So I had 15 in equity, and I stopped all that to start buying businesses. And so I was thinking the other day, and so I want to start targeting people with $1 million in real estate or above. I think that's a natural progression to switch over from the real estate to business acquisitions.
Yeah. So let's talk about this new fund that you have. You've set up a fund. Is it a fund or is it a syndication of high net worth individuals?
Yeah. High net worth individuals who have, we know each other from a long time. They've pledged a certain amount of money for certain type businesses. And I go out and look for them and bring certain people in who are interested in that type business. Most of them are interested in wholesale distribution, but not all of them are interested in hotels in Colombia or real estate here in where I'm in my house in Mexico right now.
Yeah.
And so, and that's what I do. I invest that money in things that we decided to invest in during COVID. Now we've got back together and I said, listen, these companies are back on the market. I'm going to create this model. And it's a new model for me. It's a new model. We've always operated our own businesses. We own 100% of them. Now we take 40. We give them 60. You find
kind of like a search fund with a sponsor. You find an operator who goes finds the B2B wholesale business. You prefer food, and it has 10 years consistent profitability. And you do what? You will help them finance the entire deal?
Yeah. Well, this is what, let me go over the whole program, because it's a program, and we don't do this for people. I don't invest in you unless I know you're investable. So you come into a program, and I focus on first time buyers. I don't really want to bring on in this program people who've bought businesses before. I want people who are interested in buying businesses that don't know the next step. So it's about a 90-day program that I teach you one-on-one how to buy businesses. 60 to 90 depends on what it is. Then we start buying businesses. Once you go through that, we meet weekly and one-on-one for 60 to 90 days, depending on how quick you learn the skill set. Then you're out, and we still meet at that point, but it's only on Tuesday, Thursday. When you're inside the program, Tuesday, Thursday, we book a call each week, and I move you forward through my program based on your skill set. I create the funnel. I create everything. And so when you're finished, I know that you know how to buy businesses my way. Not how, I know some guys out there just say, "Bring me the deals. I'll talk to you." I like to be organized. I like to know that you know, and it's going to take me 60 to 90 days to give you my knowledge on a one-on-one basis. Now, eventually, I may have to go to a group basis, but right now it's a one-on-one basis. During that time frame, you have 24-hour access to me via our WhatsApp. We're on WhatsApp. You ask me a question, and if we need to jump on a call, we jump on a call. But you got 24-hour access to me. It's not just once a week. And so we pledge money for the group financials. So you look like you're a real buyer at that point, because you know brokers are the people who they're the
and you're just going
gatekeeper.
You're going on market deals, not off market.
Only on market deals right now. I don't want to complicate things. Yeah. This is our first time buyer. I want to show them how to buy their first business. Everything that we do once a week is recorded. So inside your file, I'll download the recording, so you can always listen to. You always have it. We pledge the money, so you're a legitimate buyer. We supply the down payment for the first acquisition, and we pay all the due diligence costs. You get 60% of the deal. We're at 40%, and we also have a team of back office people, CFO, CEO, and director of sales. And so that's what we're bringing to the table.
So what is a deal? The numbers look like the years, like it's a $5 million. Let's say it's $5 million seafood out of Maine. It's 15% profitability. It's B2B. It's wholesale. It's been in business for 15 years. Owner's retiring. It's growing at 5% per year. They're asking, well, what would something go like that for? Like $2 to $3 million.
Depends on SDE. No, It wouldn't go to. It'd go about 1.5, maybe 1.5 to 2.2, depending on the SDE. Now we're on that company would be about a 2.3 to 2.5 multiple.
Yeah.
And so SDEs, so it depends on the SDE, the assets and the liabilities. It's a very simple calculation once you understand it. So if let's say we're at a 2.0, I could do that in my head. And go ahead.
Is that like say a comp multiple for that industry, seafood probably business?
Probably 2.5, but it's going to be more difficult for me to calculate 2.5.
Yeah, just do 2.0. Yeah.
so if let's say the SDE, which is a very contentious number to get to. That's one of the biggest. That's in the ebook. The SDE is a very contentious number for various reasons.
It's always padded. It makes the multiple. It's like
I like that. I like that because I create from the padded SDE. I create the asking multiple. So let's say, and so this is interesting to me anyway. I love this. So let's say that the broker listed SDE of 500,000. And the sales price of 2 million. Well, immediately I know that I calculate that, and it's going to be too high. Let's say that the SDE, well, depending on the assets and liabilities, but let's say the SDE is 500,000 and the asking price is 1 million. Let's just say that it's not going to be, but I don't want to get complicated and start adding in assets and subtracting liabilities at this point. Immediately, I know it's a two multiple. His retail asking price is 2. However, I get in and I start calculating what we call the true SDE. Now, let's say this he's got one owner and he's making $200,000 a year, and he's not only the owner, but he's the owner operator and he's the CEO. So, what you have to do in that case is you can't add back the position of CEO.
Yeah, because you'll need it next year. Yeah.
Well, because it's not a discretionary number. It's not. I mean, this is the argument. SDE is seller's discretionary earnings. That's not discretionary. That happens. The seller happens to be 2 people: the owner of the stock and the CEO of the business. The CEO of the business salary cannot be added back to SDE because they're mutually exclusive. Some brokers try to get over on you, but so when I subtract out that 200,000, it makes the true. And then there's other things, but I don't want to get complicated at this point. it's now the SDE is now 300,000 as opposed to 500. Because, and let's say it takes $150,000 to replace him. So 50,000 of that add back was a true add back. So now it's 350,000 times the multiple times the asking multiple. And so now we know the price of the business is now $700,000.
Yeah.
Now you've got to add assets, you've got to subtract liabilities, and it's not complicated. I just don't want to get into them. It's just a simple addition and subtraction at that point. That's how we create the true asking price. And that's where people get in, that's where brokers get in trouble by inflating that SDE number. I like that because it brings the multiple down, because regardless of the sales price, the multiple is simply a divided number by the sales price. And so once we get it down here, we have to recalculate the asking price based on the retail, based on the asking multiple that he created. So I like that. I think it's an interesting factor of them trying to pad SDE.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that I've seen with these SDEs.
Yeah, no, SD in the ebook tells you this is the number one argument you're going to have. And sometimes it's very contentious. Sometimes they get their feelings hurt. It just depends on the broker. But I don't mince words.
It's like I saw one in Vegas. Saw one in Vegas. I was like, "What's this car that's in the ASDE?" It's a Lamborghini. Well, I don't need a Lamborghini.
No, it's a Lamborghini. Yeah, you don't need the Lamborghini.
Yeah.
And this is another reason I don't care for the manufacturer. It even happens in distribution. This is a higher level conversation with the broker, but let's say the owner has made a decision. This is on interest. Sometimes they try to add back interest. And he made the decision to buy a new freezer, or you may need a new freezer, but a new something that is really his decision that maybe the new owner wouldn't have made. And they're adding back interest payments. I said, well, you can't add back interest because that's not discretionary. When I take this over, it doesn't leave with the seller. And I have many arguments about discretionary income, discretionary. What is discretionary? But interest is not one of them.
No, it's going to be there next year. As soon as the owner. Yeah.
Exactly. And sometimes for some reason, these brokers are trained, and I know why, because they're trying to get business from sellers. They're trained to prop up SDE. And depending on how big the interest is, if it's $1,000 a year, or I don't care. But sometimes I ran into one that was almost half of SDE interest. So very interesting argument for me. I like having it, and we usually win because it's just rational. You can't.
So let's go back to this example. You say you go to this broker. Hey, this is a nice business. We like it. You analyze it with your operator. You get the actual SDE. You get the actual multiple, and you say, yeah, here's what we'll pay to the broker. And it's an LOI with what? Like it's 50% down in cash equity and 50% seller financing. Yeah.
I don't know. It depends on the assets.
Yeah.
I try to do LBOs, all LBOs, but this industry I usually can, but not always, because these companies we look at are so asset heavy. They're just asset laden companies that, some of them have over $1 million in inventory, and we only take 1 month. We only take one cycle. So if it's a 30-day cycle doing 500,000 a year, let's just say 600,000 a year in sales. And I'm not going to subtract cost of goods. I'm just going to do it easily. So that's $500,000 a month in inventory they need. But they have, let's say this company would have like $1.5 million. They have 3 cycles of inventory, but in reality, they don't. They have
only need one cycle. Yeah.
Only one. I only take one.
But usually it's products that have been obitted or they're not selling anymore.
That's why I only take one cycle. I know out of that $1.5 million in inventory, I can get $500,000 out. So what I do in the contract, I only accept 500,000. Anything over, I pay for as I use it. Because you're right, there's going to be They don't even know. How am I going to know how much of that inventory is obsolete? How much of that 1.5 million is obsolete?
It's not worth a dollar for dollar. Yeah.
It's not worth anything. No, at the end, when I use all the non-obsolete inventory, I'll load up a truck and ship it to them, and I subtract that from the price because I've included that 1.5 million in inventory, but I'm not paying for it, and that's subtracted from the down payment. Well, I'm not paying for it. I'm paying for it monthly as I use it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how. There's just many things that I've learned over the. I mean, I bought one company. I swear to you, this is true, and I didn't know it. That included. This was I think a computer distributor. Yes, a computer distributor. Back in the day, when they weren't all consolidated, but included in the inventory was a pallet of pet rocks.
Was that for trade show use or something? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I got stuck because I didn't have this clause in the contract at the time. I just took all the inventory. So, nobody's going to have pet rocks, but he had pet rocks. Not anything to do with the business. And
you would have bought that had you not had your
funny.
Floor ceiling kind of that you probably added later.
I did. No, I added the clause of the inventory. I used to take all the inventory. Now I don't, only take 30 days or a third. If you can't control your inventory, and obviously if you're selling,
you shouldn't be in the manufacturing business.
Yeah, the distribution. So something's wrong with the inventory. But we sold those pet rocks. One of my guys sold the pet rocks. I think he made some money on them too. I believe I gave him all the money, and so all the profit. So it was funny. It was a funny time.
We are aging ourselves when we talk about pet
rocks.
Right?
Pet rocks. A pallet of pet rocks.
Those were in Spencer's, and they were hot selling.
This was a long time ago.
Yeah,
but I can't tell you any recent stories like this because I don't have any. There's just, now I know what to expect. I know what to expect. You're not going to get me. And I mean, those pet rocks are still funny to me. And if I talk to my friends today, they would think it's funny also. But it was a funny time. But I just learned. I put it in the contract, and that's it.
So you're looking for somebody. Well, they're an operator coming to you. Mm-hmm. They're going to go find the business, or together you're going to find the business with this training program, right? And you go find a great seafood distributor out of Maine. It's, meeting all the criteria you're looking for, place the offer on it. What does that look like? They're going to move to Maine and operate it, right? For how many years?
Yes. Okay. Let me back up a little bit and kind of get a better foundation for what we go through to get them ready. There's 4 main criteria. There's 4 main pillars to our first three weeks. We don't do anything. The first time they contact a broker is 3 to 4 weeks out. We get everything together, our financials together, our story together. Who are you? We get what we're looking for. Are you going to be local? Are you going to be national? And we get the family involved. Especially if they're going to be national. This is a life-changing event, but these are big companies. It can be a life-changing event. So how much do you need to make? Where do you want to buy these companies? What industries are we going to be in? And just, again, local or national is one of the biggest things. Are you married? I analyze everything. The last thing I want to do is spend 2 months working on this, and a wife or some significant outside influence comes in and says, no, they don't. I like to get the influences in people's life involved, because this is a lot of work for me. To train someone to buy a company is a lot of work because I'm doing it one-on-one. And I don't want any outside influences coming in at the last minute saying, well, I didn't know this. I want everybody to understand it. So if you choose national, yes, they're moving there. Now, the objective is not to buy a business. To buy a job is to buy a business. That's why we look for those companies 10 plus years. Everything I have in place, there's reasons for it. And so I've created a scale I call the absenteeism scale. And it's 1 to 10. Owner operator brings a sack lunch, can't leave because he can't leave the office. That's a 0 to a 1. Guy sitting on his couch calling his managers every week or 2, 3 weeks. That's a 10, 9 and 10. That's an absentee owner who has no reason to sell, no reason to take owner financing. He's retired, in effect. We look for for twos and threes, and with all those other criterias that I've told you earlier, 10 key employees, we look for those type companies that can step up. We put processes and procedures in place, and we can help the operator. But mainly, that's why I need people who can manage people. I need partners who can manage, because that's what we're doing. We're managing people. I don't want these guys going there to work and move. They can move if they want to. But really, they just have to have the idea of 3 to 6 months converting this from a 2 on the absenteeism scale to a 6, 7, 8. Our managers are in place. We've got processes and procedures in place. We can train. These guys already know the job. They already know the business. They're there. And so that's what we look for. And that's the reason we look for it. But so to answer your question, yes, they may have to go there, but the objective is not for them to live there. After 6 months, we can put all the modules and processes and procedures in place necessary to, if all the other aspects are in place, we can put that seller can move on to his next deal, because he has the knowledge. I mean, my partner can move on to his next deal with or without me. The
and
beauty
he
of
owns,
this program,
he owns 60% of the cash flow. You own 40%.
I own 40% of the cash flow.
And
right.
do you have any intentions to do anything like it? The search funds with the private equity works, they got to turn every 5 years. They sell their portfolio. You intend to keep it forever or what?
No. Each deal's different, but I've got 100% ability to do whatever with my 40%. I'm not the operator. I'm not the main person. I just get 40% of the cash flow. So if I get 10, 20, 30 companies, yes, of course, I'm probably going to exit. Once I get a certain amount, I'll exit. And we're working on that strategy now, but I structure this with the ability for me to exit. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And together, if we want to exit together, we can exit together. If he wants to keep it, he can keep it. My 40% doesn't affect what he decides to do with the business. That's why I'm looking for people who know what they're doing. Yeah, I've got to have good partners. I've got people.
Do they have the right of first sale with you to purchase? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give it to them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah, I'll absolutely, because they're my partner. I'm not trying to do. I wouldn't do anything that's going to harm them.
You're looking for partners, people to manage people, to put processes in place.
Yeah, and we help you. We've got the back office what's been doing this for years. These are my guys that have been.
What happens to the back office that the business had? Did they go away?
No, we don't run the businesses. When I say back office, I mean people like outsource CEO, outsource CFO, outsource director of sales. They'll be there if necessary. Hopefully they can. They're mostly retired now. They're older than me, so but they're there to support the operation, support my partner in achieving the objectives, supporting. Just like me training you to buy a company, they're going to train you to be the director of sales, or train the director of sales to be director of sales.
Yeah.
CFO, my CFO, he'll be there if necessary. I like him there. He has to create the new structure for us to make sure all the financials are, or to make sure we're getting the reports we need. And so CFO goes there. But depending on the other positions, if you need them, you can use them. If not, you don't need them. I've structured this to support many types of skill sets. Some people don't want them. My CFO is going to go there, and he's going to put our.
Is he going to be the first put accounting system in and chop expenses 10%? I mean, that increases profitability.
It does
60, 90 days. Yeah.
No, we're cheap. We don't not cheap. I'm not going to go in and put a huge accounting system in if they've got one sufficient.
Yeah.
It's just nothing. Now, if we're integrating, I'd have to figure. That's a whole different story. That's a whole different level. But no. If the accounting system's sufficient, we're not. No way. We're not. We're there to make money. We're not there to increase expenses.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Robert, but he's going to go in and make sure all the process procedures are in line.
Fascinating. I like this. How do they get in touch with you if they feel like they're a good operator for this?
The website. It's www.smallbizacquisitions.com. If you'll put that in the link, that'll be they can reach me directly from there. I answer all the calls. You text me when it says text Robert, you're texting me directly. So I don't have any barriers between me and my potential partners. I want to talk to everybody. They can fill out the application form. It comes directly to me. I had 2 yesterday. I've got to get 2 right after this podcast. And yeah, it's just I talk to them. We talk and we figure out if it works for you. If it does, we just start moving forward.
Perfect. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to stop, right?
I hope this video has inspired you. If you need help buying your first $1 million business, make sure to visit me at dealflowsystem.net. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe down below. Comment on it, share it, tell everyone about it. And thanks for watching.